Fantastic. So welcome, day 2 of the International Coaching Week 2023 with the ICF. And welcome to our second seminar with the International Institute of Research and Human Development. We will be sharing the recording with everyone afterwards, and we will also be sharing some links to our LinkedIn profiles and feedback forms so that you can be in touch with us after today. Please provide your suggestions in the chat and any questions that you have about today's seminar. We're going to be offering a certificate of attendance to those that attend all 6 seminars. So that I can match you, please ensure that your name in the registration here is the same for all 6 seminars, so that we can make sure that we can track you on the registration lists and get the certificates out to you to the correct email address. Like I said, post your questions in the Q&A. We'll be picking them up at the end of the session. And we are presenting today some thematic insights of our upcoming NLP course. And it's an online course delivered in June. There's a little QR code on the slides. If you scan the QR code, it will actually take you to the course and you can learn more about our structured programs that way. So a little bit about Purposeful Innovators. We are a non-profit social enterprise registered in the UK, and we are a membership of professionals who are dedicated to social and human development around the world. And we literally dedicate our life, we're committed to our life work along developing sustainable transformation and social impact across all fields. We are a non-profit. Our motto is no compromise to planet, profit and people. And we have 5 channels or pillars that our work falls into. The first is education, and it is through education we believe that we can make that social transformation. We also deliver community projects, ESG consultancy, research and environmental strategic partnerships. My background, I'm a PCC ICF coach with a background in marketing. I'm also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. I'm the founder of Purposeful Innovators, and I'm joined today by a fantastic team of members and associates. We are in partnership with the Institute, the International Institute of Research for Research and Human Development, and George, who is our keynote speaker today, is the founder of that institute. I'm also joined by Wendy, Natalia and Mario, who are part of our faculty team. A little bit about George. So George is a lecturer at the Université de Reims. Apologies for my French. He's an ICF-MCC coach, SICPNL certified, a trainer and master practitioner of NLP. He is a spiral dynamics, sociocracy and Enneagram specialist. George is the Secretary General of the IAFM and the former Secretary General of the ICF Luxembourg. He's an ICF Global member, past member of the Board of Directors of the ECA-EMCC in Belgium. And just a little bit more about the Institute before we move on. The Institute, George founded the Institute for Adult Education, and it's accredited by the Ministry of Education in Luxembourg. It's also accredited by the IAS for ISO 9001-2015, and accredited by the International Coaching Federation for Level 2 and Level 3 trainings. The Institute is a professional training centre headquartered in Luxembourg and specialises in certifying continuing professional training in coaching, NLP, leadership, management, and Enneagram. So really excited for today's session, and I'm going to hand it over to you, George.
Thank you very much, Rania, for this introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everybody. I'm glad to be here with you. And we're going to go through a little process that it's very useful. People understand it very well, but at the same time, there is an issue to apply it or to integrate. I talk about the feedback. We're going to see the feedback under its a human development and coaching aspect, but also in a general aspect. The feedback is part of the science of recognition. What is the science of recognition? You can go on, Wendy. The science, you can go still on. Thank you. The science of recognition is what the neurologists tell us, that people, they feel comfortable when we get recognition from other people, which is a point and give a dynamic of strength, awareness to the other. When I introduce feedback to the university or to the different companies, because we have to understand what is the impact of feedback in our work or in our learning, I use the Johari window. Johari is from the two first syllables of Joseph and Harrington. They are the people that they established this matrix. And what tells us this window? We have 4 areas. It's the first one, what I know about myself and what the others know about myself. I have a gray shirt today, and you can see it, I can see it, I'm aware of that, and you know that as well. The second area is what I don't know about myself and what the other knows about me. And I give very often this example of when I had lunch once. I went back to the office, I was smiling to people, and people look at me wildly. I say, why that? I start to ask me questions. And when I entered my office, one of my assistants told me, you know, can you take out a little leaf of lettuce that you have between your teeth? And this is something I couldn't see it. I didn't know about myself, but the other can see and give me what we call feedback, just information about ourselves. And this in Johari window called the blind spot. The third one is the facade, what others don't know about me. And it's very useful to familiarize people to tell things about themselves before a meeting, for example. If you have a uncomfortable event in the evening, I don't know, you fight with somebody or you be stressed about something, it's good to tell people what happens to you, because they don't focus on yourself. If you are stressed about a deadline that nothing to do with your job or nothing to do with the course or the lecture that you do, people know that you are stressed about that, but they know also they are not the cause of that, the trigger of that. And like that, we can easily focus on work and don't lose our time about hypotheses and about the mood of the other. And finally, there is the unknown part, what I don't know about myself, and also what others don't know about me. I'm not going to go in details on this quadrant. This is because some spirituality comes in. When I teach to the students, in fact, I put in their intuition or what happens to us when we recognize things, when we arrive to awareness, and how we grow up with the time and with the experience. With this window, we point out the importance of feedback. It's important to say things that we have observed to other people. We help them to become better, to have a better performance, to have more awareness, and also to integrate knowledge. If I'm coming back to the general framework, the science of recognition, Receiving recognition and praise from others can have powerful in promoting positive outcomes. Recognition also give us positive self-evaluation and increased sense of self-worth, higher level of interest and motivation. And if we go to the NLP practitioner practice, more we receive feedback, more we increase our self-worth, more we increase our self-confidence, and subsequently, more we increase self-esteem. Never forget, if you have coaches that they have a lack of self-esteem, start to give positive feedback, and also tasking to go and find out positive feedback from relatives or friends or from their colleagues. Recognition, praise, and rewards can enhance motivation and performance, especially when the recognition is perceived as sincere and deserved. Another point is when you give a feedback, you have to be sincere. I can assure you that people doesn't have to make a master or a PhD on microexpression or detection of lies and deception to understand that you are not sincere. Be yourself, and when you give a positive feedback, do it with your heart. And the last point I put in this slide is about parents. I'm always very keen to give some ideas about the relation parents-kids, because we suffered from that, and they suffered from that also. Parents has to provide continuously recognition and positive feedback to their children, create supportive environment that fosters the development of self-esteem. Through my intervention in the different universities, I realized that currently students doesn't have a lot of confidence, a lot of self-esteem, because there is this lack of feedback from parents. What is a positive feedback? A positive feedback is a feedback. I like to take the structure of NLP because it's simple. The English say, keep it kiss, keep it simple and stupid. There is positively formulate, specifically formulate, and the objective is to reinforce or modify behavior in a real time or after an event. Feedback is a powerful tool of learning and improvement, provide information about the consequences of own actions, and helps to identify areas of improvement. Its effectiveness depends on the quality and timelessness of the information provided, should be specific, actionable, and focus on behavior. A major point is, very often in a lot of languages around the world, we make judgments and we use the identity. You did something stupid. You are stupid. It's not exactly the same thing. You did something stupid, you can always recover it. You are stupid with one word, you can destroy a life, because it will be just a nightmare in the mind of somebody. Contextual purpose of feedback. The context dictates the purpose of the feedback. It's another thing to give a feedback in a company. It's another thing to give a feedback when you do a course. It's another context to give a feedback for human development. In the human development, the focus is on develop awareness. We want that people has the openness to see things with different glasses. In business, feedback is used to redirect employees to predefined operational objectives, to improve employees' performance, or to improve product quality, customer satisfaction. When we coach teams or we do reorganization of the department, it's very important to implementing the feedback in the right way. And it's also very important to understand that at some point there is limits and we have to take after 1, 2, 3, 4 feedbacks decisions. In education, feedback is used to improve knowledge integration. This is because you are going to correct people, to correct students in order to integrate the knowledge that you just teach them. Structure and delivery. First of all, when you want to give a feedback to somebody, you have to adopt a positive and supportive tone of voice, very important, and also the adequate posture. Ask for consent and explain the purpose. Ask people, are you ready to hear feedback? Are you ready to discuss about something? Are you ready to hear about the outcome of an event, of an action? If the people says no, ask when you can have this opportunity. But never give a feedback if there is not a consent, because it will come from here and will go out from there with no impact. A positive feedback environment is characterized by a focus on building on strength, a tone that is supportive and empathic, an orientation towards growth and development. In the companies, very often we blame employees, but we don't have to blame anybody. We have just to be supportive. We can start with positive things and we can go on things that we can change or recover. The first part of the feedback is the positive part. We share in positive aspect of action and behavior. And it's very important to never forget that. I go through a lot of multinational companies, especially here in Switzerland, because there is too many. And I can see that thousands of managers, they forget to give a positive feedback. And when a multinational make millions, I think a lot of people doing a lot of good things. Donc, in this first part, we provide specific example of the behavior or action. Stick to the observable fact and to how the person did it well. This is one of the major points for me in a feedback, how the person did it well. Oh, you are wonderful, it was perfect, exceptional, magnific, tremendous. It's not a feedback. If you say to a person, I love what you said this morning in our meeting because you gave specific examples, everybody understood what you wanted to say. This is a specific feedback. Now the person knows that if he gives specific examples, people can understand better. And he can even improve this quality, this behavior, which is positive in a context. Identify strengths in the behavior or performance. Explain the consequences of the behavior or performance. Key points: effective feedback is based on specific observable behavior. You have to be very specific. As I said, I gave an example before, but we can find examples observing people. It provides information about the consequences of own action. It identifies specific areas of improvement. It's the second part. It's suggestion for improvement. And we identify areas of improvement in this part. We provide specific actionable suggestions for improvement, focus on behavior and what the person can do it different. As you see here, there is also this how I do things differently. Very, very important. Never forget that. How for me is the key word in a feedback. Very often we say, don't do that. This is not okay for that. We lost money, or you didn't understand anything. The thing is, you have to propose or to suggest the people how to do things. You know, as a kid, very often we had our parents to say, don't do that, or we do also. I'm sure that everybody does that, me included also. We say, don't do that. The problem is we expect from a child to do something that is wrong, but we never explain how to do differently that is right. And if we don't have this reference, we cannot improve ourselves. This is the reason I insist on tell to the people how to do differently the things in a positive way. Key points: effective feedback is focused on specific behavior and action that can be modified. Again, be specific. Slow down your speed of speech. Slow down. How I do that? I don't know. I give sometime the example. You tell a sentence, and after that you count it yourself 1, 2, 3. Let's make space and just slow down the speed, and you continue again. Tell to the people how they can do something that you want, you consider that it's a good thing, and you suggest to them. And also the key points, it provides an explanation of what to do differently, as we said just now. Conclusion. Conclusion is also very important because you have to give a positive dynamic, a positive mindset to the person. Summarize the main point of the feedback. Close feedback with recognizing general talent of style. What I said before, we start with positive points, we go on a suggestion, and we close the feedback with a positive general point. Take that from his talent. This is what I say myself personally, or his strengths, something that you admire. You can say that also, I admire to you. Your serenity, for example, make that there is no conflict on the team, and we can get in time our deadlines. The serenity is a general talent of this person. Check for effective understanding. Ask to especially to the coachee, if he everything is clear for him or her. Why I say that I added that with my experience, my professional experience, because at some point I realized that people goes away with a feedback they haven't understood, and they spend a difficult time. And I have the cases that people came upset Monday morning to ask, wow, I didn't understand that. What's happened? What is that? And after explanations, they understood it was, again, in a normal mood and a normal emotion. The goal of feedback is to provide information, recognition, and proposal that leads to improved awareness, performance, and integration of learning. These are the different frameworks. And to increase a supportive environment that encourages growth and development. Never forget the structure with 3 points: positive, specific, and 1 suggestion, 1 positive. If you want to increase a suggestion, you have to increase positive points. Neurologist says that we need 5 positive points before a suggestion. I would say if you make it 3, it will be really a good performance already, as we don't have the habit to give very easily positive points. And also, feedback is a in-time specific subjective opinion about something. In a lot of countries, especially in the European one and the North America, we don't like criticize people, but it's a human being behavior to criticize, to have an opinion, or to have a judgment. Now, the thing is, you have to be authentic about your feedback, because if you give a feedback, it's your opinion, it's not a truth. As I say, if you give your opinion once, it's just an accident, it's not the truth. And if somebody else gives the same authentic opinion to somebody a second time, it's a coincidence. It's not always the truth. We keep it, but as it's not the truth, doesn't mind. And if a third person gives the same authentic feedback to you, it starts to become recurrence. And scientifically, if we have a recurrence, we think about. And we think about what? Should I keep this behavior or should I change it? And this is to you to change or to keep your behavior according to your values. I give you an example. Very often they tell me I have a very provocative way of coaching. I provoke people. In some countries, it's even very close to the illegal area, like France, for example. But I really believe as a coach, in fact, that if we don't push somebody outside of his comfort area, he's not going to make any progress. And this is why I keep pushing people out of their comfort area. Now, people tells me we're not okay with that. I hear 1, 2, 3, but I can tell you I am aligned with my values. This is the most important thing. And if I take in 2 words, Aristotle document about ethics, which is 600 pages, I could say, do you sleep well the evenings? About your actions, your behavior, and your feedback that you gave during the day. If you do so, don't change your behavior. If you don't do so, something has to be changed. Here it is, I think. Thank you very much. And I open discussion, question, and I am also open to share experiences.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, George. It's really fascinating, especially the positive angles on how the science, the neuroscience works around feedback. We did receive, we have received some great questions that I can put to the team. So from Taryn, they're asking, is taking feedback through asking some questions an effective, constructive way? If yes, what should we not generally ask to maintain its effectiveness?
If I well understood, to ask question to whom? To coaching?
Taryn, can you unmute yourself? Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Taryn.
Sorry, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, what I was trying to understand, that was in the beginning of the session. As the session got completed, few points got clarified, but I was just trying to understand any suggestions or tips, like some of the words we should never use while taking feedback, like sometimes, as you said, some cultures, there is a tendency to provoke first and then get the insight thinking of a coachee. But if we have to use more of positive words and positive way of taking feedback, then anything additionally you would like to suggest, some words we should not use in this exercise? Thank you.
What I said at the beginning is to use positive words, specific words, and you have to be authentic. And a lot of time people, they make a feedback that it's fake in a way that they have to be able to do a feedback, and they do a feedback. They say, wow, wonderful, bravo, etc. The intonation show that it's all already fake. They didn't feel it. What I'm saying is, you can say, I love the way that you do things. It's very, very helpful what you do, but the intonation is very important. You don't have to make exclamation all the time, but intonation is very important to have a supportive and also an authentic tone of voice, timbre, pitch of the voice, and also to have a regulate speech, speed of speech.
Thank you so much.
Wendy and Mario, is there anything more you'd like to add?
Was thinking about specific words, and there's something that hurts me when I listen to people making feedback. And if you say to somebody, I felt that you felt. I felt that during this operation you felt sad. For example, we can feel what another person feels. So it's better to state the observation of the behaviors and say, I've observed that behavior was, not I feel that you were feeling. So I think the observation is more important than feelings when we give feedback to somebody. And to be concrete, stay on the concrete side of the situation, talk about observations. And because it's very difficult to make somebody improve, talking about some pretend feeling. So concrete observation is a good area for feedback, to say what concretely was going on and talk about.
Yeah, I can just jump on and add to what Mario is saying there, in that I feel it's good to say, when you did this, I felt this. So only feedback. So when my experience going through whatever it is that they did, it had this impact on me. Taran, I would say I avoid asking why. Why did they do this, or why did they say that? Because that's going to give them reasons and justifications. So if you're wanting them to improve an behavior, I like to share one thing that would make it even better, which presupposes it was still okay, but one thing that make it even better, and then give my suggestion. So avoid the why questions would be my top tip there. Good question.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the valuable tips by everybody. I believe, to summarize, if I may understand, anything which can impact the self-esteem of a person in negative way, we should try to avoid. Is it correct understanding?
Can you repeat the end, please?
Yeah, what I said is any usage of word or sentences which can impact the self-esteem of coachee in a negative way, we should avoid using such words. Is it correct?
Yeah, we use only positive words, very specific with specific examples. And more you use specific examples, more the people, they improve their self-confidence. Self-confidence slowly improves self-esteem. This is why when we coach people, we have to give them positive feedback. And we can also, as a tasking, the ICF coach, I hope you are familiar with the word, we give tasking that they have to go and find people and look for feedback, for positive feedback. There is nothing wrong to ask, okay, you told me all this stuff. It's wonderful what I have to correct. What I have done positive in our organization, what I have done positive till now. You can look for the feedback also. And I saw another question there. Yeah, we're on the sandwich feedback. And yes, we use it. I think it's the simplest one. There is the 5-1, it's correct. But if you cannot do the 5-1, 5 positive to 1 suggestion, do at least 3. But do it in a proportion that it's good for the coachee.
Thank you so much.
George,
Okay.
on that topic, there's a follow-up question from Bertrand that says, don't you think that could lower the impact of the improvement part if you were to use the sandwich?
Low the improvement impact. Why? I need an explanation there.
Yeah.
I imagine
Bertrand.
that the person wants to go directly to what it's to what it's to correct, what he wants to correct, but in any case goes through a path that is not very constructive, as the people who receive the feedback will not hear anything positive. The ears will close down immediately. This is the experience But there is nothing to add on that. This is how the human being works. And this is what neuroscience for the moment says to us. In any case, I want to add on that. There is people that are comfortable to give positive feedback. They don't like criticism, but this is important also. There is people that they don't like to say to suggestion because they think that they criticize and they underknow the performance of somebody. There is people they don't like to receive positive feedback, or they don't like to receive judgment. This is a question of coaching. In fact, it's a job for coaches just to make people accept feedback, be authentic about, work on the sense of their life, the relation of the other. It's a general topic of coaching in an organization.
Bertrand is able to join us today. Bertrand, can you expand on the impact part, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
What I was looking for is that is there a way that we avoid putting everything in the same feedback and instead provide like 3 or 4 different types of feedback, and but respecting the way you build the feedback, so you are not providing any judgmental words. You respect the person you are offering the feedback to, and that was the question. Instead of building a sandwich way, let's split, provide some positive feedback as often as possible, and when necessary, provide some development or negative feedback.
Why not? My answer, why not?
The thing for me is, what is the context?
Yeah.
It could be we can find nothing. It's a truth in human development. We have to see what is the context, if it's appropriate to that. And the other thing also I say very often, people they try to respect the procedure. Feedback is not a procedure, it's something very instinctive. It has to be conversational. Never forget that as ICF coach, we have to be conversational all the time, and we have to be very quick. Feedback is 1 minute, it's not more than that. I love what you do there. I'm very impressed for this performance. It was very helpful. At the same time, I suggest you to do that in this way, just to gain time, or because you will be much more powerful, but do something very fast. It's better something very fast with the ingredients than to split, because there is people that forget very easily. And this is very important also with the children's. Don't forget that. This is the next generation. And this is, for me, I'm slowly out of the active life, but the next generation take over, and they have to be confident with a good self-esteem. I don't know if I answered to your question.
You did. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Wendy, have you got anything to add?
Well, just onto that, I'd say that, catch people doing things right. If we made more of a habit of that, and so the positive feedback, the positive comments are part of how we do what we do, rather than saving it all up. Oh, I've got some constructive feedback. I need to think of some positive things to say. So, that's not authentic, and that's not the intention of the feedback sandwich. So, yeah, I think as coaches, we need to be finding people doing things right and recognizing them and appreciating the efforts that they do naturally in all of our conversations, rather than saving up for a feedback sandwich.
So take it more casually and continuously, and look for the positive aspects. Absolutely. Rather than waiting. Fantastic. Elena's question, which is, what is the best way to give feedback in personal coaching as we don't give direction or advice? Do we state our observations? I think we have covered that in the comments, so in the responses so far. Mariana's got a question that says, how do you feel the degree, how much to push or provoke a coaching, not to push too hard or too early?
we have to be very careful. Pushing somebody depends on our level of quality of relation with our coachee. If we don't have a good relation, he will go or she will go away very fast. You will understand that. Or you will understand for the micro expression, because it's not appropriate, or it's not just for him or her. More we have this strong and high quality of relation, more we can go farther. But at the same time, we have to have the humility if we observe micro expression of pain or of disgust, or contempt, which is transgression of values, just to pull back and to say sorry about. We have to be able to excuse if we have done something touch the identity of somebody. And we can do that, not because we're bad persons or we're going to be more intelligent, but by misunderstanding. We want to say things, the other understand other things. That means we have always to be ready to correct what we do, and to be very careful, because sometimes single words can stay and disturb the life of somebody.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Maybe one word about the frame. It's very difficult to adopt a provocative position if the protection frame is not built. So maybe the first step is to build a protection frame. I mean, a frame into within is possible to share with the coachee in an open way. If the protection frame is built, is easier to be provocative in a session. So security and confidence have to be present in the session to be provocative.
Yeah, I think for me, the only thing I'd add on is to build in a culture of feedback. So as a coach, I'm always asking at the end of every coaching session, okay, what did we do well today and what could we do to make it even better next time? So they get familiar with me asking for those questions, and I'm always looking for improvements. So because I'm demonstrating that and role modeling that, then it's easy to flip it over for them to sort of encourage them to do more self-reflection. So use feedback as it's a way of how I do what I do. So every single session, I always end on that and encourage them to explore. I push them. Give me one more thing. Oh no, Wendy, it was great. No, give me one thing to make it even better next time. So, and I don't let them off the hook. But you've got to have good rapport before you get too provocative. Okay, Elsa's got her hand raised.
One day I have to add something. What you said is very important. It's just one thing to get to improve yourself next time. And when you give feedback, you know, sometimes we say, wow, what I have to choose to give a feedback. There's so many things he has to correct. Choose the thing that is the most basic and build on slowly, and don't give too many suggestions, because they will not hear them.
Yeah, I think it's what one thing would have the biggest impact on all the other things. So that's the gift.
A concrete example can come from sport. I come from sport model. It's very difficult to change the behavior of a sportman or women, given a lot of suggestions, because it's very difficult to change many behaviors at the same time. It's difficult for the brain to manage it, and for the body also. So maybe it's a good metaphor of what we can do in feedback, not only in sport, but in all different frames. It's difficult to manage too much. So maybe just one or two. Two is a huge feedback. Two key points to develop. It's a huge feedback. So change the mindset is not so easy and comfortable. So maybe one or two suggestions about the same behavior is good. More is difficult, and too much is too much for everybody. So maybe stay humble as a coach and give just one or two suggestions about maybe the same behavior. It's more effective than a long and strong feedback with many points to develop.
Brilliant. I've got a couple of fantastic questions, and then I'm going to go on to Elsa. And I know, Elsa, you've had your hand raised, but there's a couple of questions around cynics. What about people who take feedback too sensitively, who don't believe you if you're positive, and they can be cynical, and you know, how do you overcome that mindset? And that was a couple of questions from Sana, Natalia. They all touched upon this aspect of sensitivities.
You can propose a good psychiatrist, a good therapist, good one. Apart humor, everything we teach in coaching has a purpose. And here the purpose of feedback, as we said before, is to set up the framework, explain it. The Zori window, it's a nice way. And this is the purpose to give a suggestion and to give positive point. Now, if because I saw something else about the perfectionist, if you see that there is another dysfunctions, this is objective of coaching, nothing to do with the feedback. And you can be also provocative. You can say, for example, I know you don't like criticism, but criticism is part of our life. I explain that what we say is a subjective opinion, nothing to do with truth. And you have to really underline that to the coaches. You do whatever you want with my feedback. It's a present to you. But afterwards, you can not follow my feedback, or you can to follow my feedback. My responsibility is to be authentic to you. In any case, you have to know that as a coach, you can choose your customers according to your code of value.
Wendy and Mario, over to you.
Yeah, I can add on to that. I've been doing some 360 feedback coaching sessions, and they're always interesting because you're looking at feedback from their line manager, their peers, their direct reports, and it's all about different perceptions. So, you know, asking questions around, well, how important is their perception on you? How can that be impacting your effectiveness in your role? And it's one of the gifts of feedback. It's just information. And it's really down to us if we're going to take it on board and change it, or if we're going to chuck it in the bin, or, you know, it's just somebody else's comments and suggestions. But at the end of the day, if they don't want to change, they're not going to change. So, yeah, but it's good to have that awareness. It's the Johari window. We're pulling back the curtains a bit and saying, oh, look what they're saying, look what they're saying. So.
I was thinking about the perfectionists or the sensitive people that can't accept they're good. And for me, it's very important to make appears for example, the key performance indicators as concrete indicators, and it can help the self-evaluation of the person. Something funny, when I work with this kind of coaches, I often ask, can you tell me how much real failures you had in your career? Real failures. No, I feel bad because it was not perfect, but a failure, a real failure. And it's very interesting because they have not. In many cases, they have one in an entire career on 20 years. So there is no concrete indicators of failures because there is no failures. concretely. So it's interesting to take these people back to the reality, to concrete, and say, okay, what concretely didn't work? Because in many cases, there's no items. So to put the correct indicators, concrete indicators, to say, this is a real problem, concrete one, there's not, and help the person to go to a good self-evaluation, helping the feedback culture.
Yeah. Thanks, Mario. Elsa, you've been ever so patient. Thank you so much. And I've got your question, but why don't you give us it verbally yourself?
Yes, thank you so much. It's very interesting today. Thank you. It's not completely a question. Actually, I have two things to say. The first one is the difference between talking about feedback when we are in relationships, normally at work, personal, whatever, and then when we position ourselves as a coach in a coach and coachee relationship. In this case, from the little experience that I have, the discovery session is crucial, because what I do is on the first session, so this discovery session, as Giorgios was saying, this is meant to see if this is a client is a good fit, and we are a good fit for that client. And so in this discovery session, I'm very, I bluntly and provocatively sometimes also say that I'm not here to please the person. And if that person is coming to be coached, it means that that person wants the feedback, wants to get out of their comfort zone. And it's okay if they're not happy at the particular moment, that maybe the feedback, even if it's done with positive, in a positive way and all that, once it's getting you out of your comfort zone, it might not be the best thing the person wants to hear. But I guess ultimately they see the impact, and when the session is finished and they really they are themselves and looking at what happened during this session, most of the time the next session, they come and are very happy with the feedback that was given. So I'm very keen on the first discovery session, explaining that feedback is a gift and is always there to support them. And if they want just, friendly remarks or so, they don't have to pay a coaching session, because they can go and talk to their friends. So it's very important, I guess, to put things clear at the first session, and then the feedback is taken in a much better way. What do you think, Giorgio or Wendy, and anyone?
Go, George.
Go, Wendy. I let you go. You're ready.
Okay. All right, Elsa, I think you're bang on there. I've been provocative in discovery sessions, and I have actually said to people that I only work with successful people. So if they're not prepared to play 100% to get the changes that they want, then they're not right for me, or I'm not the right coach for them. So the feedback I've had from that is, Wendy, are you serious? How can you possibly say that? Because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. So if you're not open to receiving feedback and really sort of taking massive action, I'm not the right coach for you. So that really motivates some people, and it's another good filter. People who I'm not ready to sort of receive such harsh, if they're too dainty for me, thank you, no thank you, we're not a great fit. So yes, be provocative and set up that culture and environment of it's setting the expectation. So yeah, keep doing it.
I'm completely agree with Wendy. If I have to add something, would be everyone has the coach who deserve. Every coachee has the coach who deserve also. That means don't be afraid to say no to a coachee. It's not a question of reputation. It's a question of code of ethics. And this is your code of value, your code of ethics, and never forget that.
And actually, what I've noticed is that they kind of appreciate that, because when you say it from the first session, it's like, it's like a wake-up call that, okay, it's true, I'm here, I'm paying money. It's not for me to just listen to nice things. I mean, if it's not gonna provoke any change or any, and honestly, because you talked about perfectionist also, I used to be a perfectionist. I'm on the path of healing from my perfectionism. So, and that was thanks to a great feedback. I mean, even when I have the stickler in me, I have the perfectionist, the hyperachiever, and when you are aware of that and you listen to feedback from others, I mean, this is the best gift that we can get. So this is what makes us progress. This is what makes us get out of the comfort zone and move on. And it's very important to understand that, to filter the feedback, like you said. If it's pure criticism and we feel it. I mean, it shows from the tone of the voice, from the way it's said, even if it's said without any previous positive feedback. Sometimes I receive feedback that is very direct, and I'm so grateful for it, because I can see and I can feel that the person is saying it or doing it in a positive, with a positive impact that that person wants to have, not just to criticize. And even if you give a 300 positive feedback before saying what you want to say, and then what you say doesn't have a positive purpose, then it's also all the positive things that are said before are useless. I think that people see if you're genuine or not about what you're saying.
Absolutely. We don't need a master on deception. We can see it in our biological construction like that.
Can I say something? In the word feedback, you have feed. So you give food. And if you cook for somebody to give food and feed somebody, I hope you use a not toxic food. So how is good food you're given to your coachee? How is good the food you're given to your coachee? Or how toxic could be the food you give to your coachee? So it's good measure, you know? If I like to cook for everybody. I love cooking. So I invite people to cook and give food to everybody because I'm Italian. And for Italians, it's very important to share food with everybody. So my attention is on the quality of the food I give. And if it's not good, I'm not happy. So it's the same for feedback for me in coaching. I try to give good food in the feedback, not toxic one. So it's a very simple metaphor, but maybe can help.
It relates to portion size as well, Mario. It's got to be digestible. So one bite at a time rather than have the whole bowl.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a nibble. I'm going to go quickly to Natalia and then Sananda, and then we can close.
Yes, thank you. Very interesting, obviously, topic and very interesting discussion. I have made a few notes. So for one thing, feedback is always about the relationship between the feedback giver and feedback receiver, right? So the better the relationship, the deeper the trust, the more willing the other person would be willing to listen to that feedback and take it seriously and act on it. And the better would the person who is giving feedback be able to evaluate, can I be provocative? Have I to put, like very, like touchy-feely gloves before that, or how that's going to be taken, how much I can give it in the one go. So the first comment. Second comment is on the receiving end. Yes, absolutely, feedback is a gift. And it's, like some gifts are very precious, but some gifts are just not a good fit. So it's always on the receiving end for the person also to decide, do I want to, act on that feedback or not. It's not a must. And the third thing, I think, the amazing technique that I love the most is self-directed feed forward, to ask first, like after a presentation, a conversation, and situation, to ask, so how did you feel about that? What is your, like feedback? Like, what do you think you have done great or can improve next time? And you already see the self-perception, and obviously you can then add on it. So those are my 3 little comments. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Natalia. And I'm going to go to Sananda now. Hi, Sananda.
Hi, thank you for a wonderful session. I have something that is a follow-up on what Elsa had said earlier, which is that during this discovery session, is it okay to ask, just like we ask, what's your learning style, preferred learning style, can we just also ask, what's your preferred form of feedback? Where I'm coming from is that, having been within an organization and referring back to what Wendy had said earlier regarding 360-degree feedback, is that giving feedback is also an art. And also, how proficient are we in the language in which we are giving feedback?
360 feedback, it's a tool. It's a dangerous tool at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
From my experience, more than 70% of 360 feedback gives problems behind. And the people has very careful when use it, because we have to be supportive. You have to be in a synesthesia with the other. We have to be kind with people, and we have above all believe that they have all the resources to do things well. This is my first approach. The second thing is feedback. It's here. It's to take or to leave it. I can tell you, I reorganize quite a lot of departments and companies. I know that the feedback, there is companies, I don't want to name them, they spend millions of money on training course, and the feedback is something, it's not integrated, neither to directors, neither nor to the managers. And when the feedback is well integrate in the organization, we observe that we have more than 50% for conflict goes down. And I can tell you, it's something good to work on. It's the first thing I work on the organization. It's the first thing that I share with the students or the participants, the coaches, the future coaches, because they work between them and they have to give honest feedback. This is to do. This is nothing more than that. We have to explain it, but you are for that or you don't take care of that. There is not other thing to say about.
Yeah,
thank you, George.
Just would like to add that the feedback is useful if I position myself in a "you okay, I'm okay" position. So I drive the feedback to the intervision level, and not "I'm okay, you're not." So I'm telling you that you're not okay, but you're okay and I am okay, and because you're okay and I'm too, I can give you a feedback. And I think that this condition is ignored in many organizations, in my experience. So it's interesting to develop in the feedback culture this attention to the intervision situation, intervision frame, even though I am the manager and you are the employee. But at the moment of the feedback, I position myself in the "you are okay and I am okay" situation, and then I give a feedback to be supportive.
So if I can just follow up on that, Mario, how do you do that? How do you ensure that, that's the state we are in, that, I'm okay and the coach is okay?
For me, the coach is always okay. It's always okay, even if it's wrong. I mean, there's there's no mistake. It's just a question of perception of the reality. So I can say somebody, you're wrong, because I know that we are 92% of cognitive biases against 8% of perception of the reality. So where is to be subjective? And so if I am, the coachee can be too, or vice versa, you know what I mean? So the coachee is always okay, and I'm okay. And we're sharing experiences and just help the coachee to have an insight, question him or her. But the starting point is that the coachee is good and is powerful, and or she. I say he, but it can, of course, it's she also, and powerful and smart and clever, and most of all, he or she knows about his or her life much more than me. So this is a very simple starting point. The coachee is good and is okay.
Right.
And I'm okay.
Thank you. That's
so
very
much.
powerful. Thank you so much.
And I've put the reference in the chat for the model that Mario is referencing with Eric Byrne, so that you can have a look. And a lot of his work's published on the website, so you can follow that up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sananda. And for those that we haven't been able to respond to their questions, we will get back to you directly. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today and for all your support with these webinars. Thanks to George, Wendy, Mario, and Natalia, our fantastic team. And we look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow for the next seminar 3 in the series. Thank you very much.